to the Fiasco Sports NBA season preview. I'm Matt Sampson. Joining me today, James Hetherington, straight from the States. Thanks for flying in to see us.
Straight over. Thanks for having me, Matt.
That's all right. So we're going to be getting into the Pistons, but first, a little quick shout out to Sporties of the Archipelago. They've been nice enough to let us film here every morning. I think coming up on day 9 that I've disrupted all of their morning preparation and just made a mess of the place. But check out the link to their Facebook in the description. All their details will be in the credits at the end as well. But Pistons, James.
The Pistons.
We've got to get into this. 22nd, I have them ranked overall. Where do you think that's about right?
I think that's pretty accurate. They had I'm going to say, disappointing season after they signed Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith from Atlanta. Yeah, that's right. Brandon Jennings did well, I thought. He did all right. But what was happening with Josh Smith? He was not himself.
Disappointing all around, I think, this Pistons team. I remember last year I had them slotted for a lower seed in the East. I thought that these signings made them a playoff team, and they just fell apart. I mean, Josh Smith, but we'll talk about how he fell apart a bit later. But, you know, looking at what they did last year, they went 29-53, which I know that's only 8 wins off of the Hawks for a playoff spot in the East. The East is the weaker conference, but 29 wins is not pretty, is it?
Definitely not, considering who they signed. And looking at Josh Smith, Atlanta make it in the playoffs, and he doesn't after he moves to, you know, a bigger team. Whether Detroit definitely is a bigger team than Atlanta, but it's not the serious jump you'd expect of an All-Star.
Yeah, well, I used to have him. It was before Steph Curry made the All-Star team. He and Josh Smith were my 2 best players to never make an All-Star team pair. But looking at how he played over the last season, I'm starting to wonder if he is ever going to make that leap to the All-Star level.
I've called him an All-Star for years. Like, even though he hasn't made the actual team, I definitely consider him right there. How he hasn't, don't know. Maybe it's because he was in Atlanta and he wasn't getting the credit. And then in Detroit, no one was picking him then.
No, last year definitely not an All-Star year from Josh Smith. But we'll look at how the Pacers as a team fared. And, you know, offensively, 14th in the league.
Pistons.
What did I say?
Pacers.
Well, you're wearing the Pacers shirt, so you're throwing me off. The Pistons, though, 14th in the league, better than the Pacers at offense, but defensively, definitely not an Indiana team.
Their defense sucks. Their defense is the James Harden of teams. Seriously, it's not there.
That's almost a compliment. 27th overall in the league in points allowed. I mean, we'll look at the strength we've got listed for them. That front court depth. We said Josh Smith had a pretty rough year, but Greg Monroe, Andre Drummond, Josh Smith, there isn't really a trio of bigs in the league better than that, is there?
Probably not. That's just, as you say, it just seems incredible they had that team. They did not make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I mean, the weakness though, as we touched on, underperforming signings. Josh Smith, we hate to rag on him, we keep bringing it up, but he underperformed. Brandon Jennings, he played relatively well, but for the big money they threw at him, you really wanted to see him take his game to the next level. It was sort of the same like for like. His years to Milwaukee, to Detroit, he didn't really play any better, did he?
Probably not. I think he's in the same boat as Josh Smith in terms of moves. He wanted a bigger team, and it's almost as if he was so desperate to get out of Milwaukee, he jumped at the Pistons before he could have maybe, not necessarily, you know, the top tier teams of the Lakers and the Knicks and the Celtics, but maybe someone else was out there instead for Brandon Jennings, and if he had just been a bit more patient, he could have signed on. But, you know, I think he did okay. He shined compared to Josh Smith, but the Pistons team didn't really do that well, and that's all there is to it.
I think the hardest thing for Jennings was he was trying to find a balance. I remember I watched a lot of Pistons games last year. I don't know why, but I did. I kept expecting them to get better, but Brandon Jennings was obviously a fantastic offensive player in his time in Milwaukee, and I've mentioned it 1,000 times in these videos. My favourite players in the league are the Gunners, guys with complete disregard for team basketball that just hoist it up every time down the court. I love watching that.
Yep.
And that's who he was in Milwaukee. He scored 55 points in his rookie season one game. He just shot a lot of shots. He didn't care too much about getting everyone else involved. But he came to the Pistons and he wanted to be a ball distributor, but, you know, at the same time was trying to find his shot, and he couldn't find a balance to it, really, could he?
Probably, yeah, definitely not. It's almost as if he came to Detroit after being the man in Milwaukee without a doubt, and said, you know what, I'm going to take up the Dwayne Wade compared to LeBron James role, and I'm going to be the second man to probably Josh Smith. I'm going to say Josh Smith, and he thought, you know, I'm going to prove to the league I'm a quality talent. I can distribute the ball, I can gather assists and shoot from the perimeter at the same time. And he did it to an extent, but it still wasn't Milwaukee Brandon Jennings.
No, he was sort of stuck in sort of flux between trying to take over games and get everyone else involved, and it didn't help that his teammates were underperforming around him as well. You know, he's trying to get guys like Josh Smith going, and Smith's just bombing threes away and airballing him like there's no tomorrow. But yeah, a rough season sort of all around. Moving on to this year though, what they've done, they've made some interesting pickups. Now I want to touch on the one that I know you feel the strongest about first, and that is obviously the biggest turning point was before LeBron James signed, before Carmelo signed, the biggest name off the market straight away was Jodie Meeks for $8 million a year. And I know you're a Lakers man. How do you feel about the contract that Detroit threw at Jodie?
Why anyone would give Jodie Meeks that contract is beyond me. If he is on the three by himself, no one else is on the court, everyone else is at home, he's practicing, he can shoot the lights out. But if he's got the smallest amount of pressure, get him off. He can't shoot. He's a waste of money. I don't think Detroit should have put it out there.
See, I'm a little easier on this signing. I know that last year with the Lakers, you
it's like you haven't built up the hate for Jodie that I have.
You just want to wipe that entire year away. It didn't happen. But I think the thing is that a lot of other critics, not yourself, but people who are slamming this thing about the money that they threw at Jodie is they don't understand that teams like Detroit have to overpay to get these signings. You know, the Lakers, the Knicks, the marquee teams can just be like, come to LA, come to New York, and maybe shave a couple of dollars off. No one really wants to play in Detroit as a marquee free agent, so you got to throw a couple extra dollars at them to get something. And outside shooting is something that the Pistons desperately needed last year. And so they had to overpay to get a guy, but they got the guy that they wanted. And, you know, I've got faith in Stan Van Gundy. So for now, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt and saying that this is a sneaky smart move, but, you know, it could turn out like you say and just be
all logic there. I think it probably is a smart move. As you said, they needed outside shooting, and Jodie can shoot. I'm not saying he can't, but I hate him, and it's that simple.
Well, there you go. A couple of other moves they made though. Caron Butler, brought him in. He played for, he was at Phoenix, my Suns, for about 5 seconds before we shut him off to Milwaukee. Then he went to Oklahoma City. Now he's at Detroit. Brings a bit of toughness, hopefully some outside shooting as well. Bit injury prone, but you know, he is what he is. He's getting on. But you think he can add anything to this team?
I think he can. You said he's getting a bit old, and he is, but I think there's still a bit of juice left in those tanks. And you know, you said he got shipped around. His days are numbered. Maybe he wants to prove to himself and everyone one last time. He's not a superstar, but you know, I can commit to a team and I can contribute in my own way. Yeah,
I really want to see Caron Butler in Josh Smith's ear on the sidelines. That's what I want to see out of him. I want to see him arm around him, pumping him up, getting his
They
head.
might have bought him just for that reason.
Yeah, they had Billups there last season as that sort of older mentor. I mean, Caron Butler's nickname is Tough Juice because
That's the nickname you want to have.
He is just a hard nut. He's a professional. He goes about his business, gets it done. And Josh Smith, for mine, is one of the softest players in the league. So if he can get toughened up and Caron Butler gets in his head and gets him thinking straight, even if he doesn't play much, that's a win for mine. A couple other quick signings. DJ Augustin played really well for the Bulls once Rose went down as a backup, and Cartier Martin, another shooter. So a bit of depth coming to Detroit in the offseason, isn't there? Obviously, they lost Rodney Stuckey, who's heading to the Pacers.
Pacers, of course.
I'm getting Pacers, Pistons everywhere. It's
all over the place.
Confusing me. But Stuckey's gone. I think Meeks, Butler, Augustin, they sort of fill that role. And Josh Jorts Harrelson, he's gone. Doesn't really matter. Peyton Seaver, you know.
Yeah, a lot of these names are just kind of moves that facilitated other moves in the grand scheme of things. Rodney Stuckey, it's not so much that he left Detroit, it's that he joined the Pacers because of Paul George. We all know what happened there. I think the big one here, though, beyond useless Jodie Meeks, is Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah, definitely a big in.
I think, I can't even put it into words. I think there's so much potential now, and if he can drag the best out of Josh Smith and what he did at Atlanta, I think the Pacers almost did the same thing. I think the Pistons can go deep. Not that deep. They're in the Eastern Conference, and Cleveland, Chicago, Knicks. Anyway, Stan Van Gundy, he can do wonders.
I think that if we look at Stan Van Gundy's track record, and obviously his most recent success in Orlando, his teams were centered around having a dominant big man inside and outside shooting. And we can see now that he's slowly ticking away. That's what he's moving here. He brought in some shooters. He's already got the really talented front court. And hopefully you can see get that sort of offense he had with Orlando working in Detroit. And you know, like you said, they're not going to make the playoffs this season, but they're definitely building towards something, aren't they?
Absolutely. Whether I'm just wondering how it's going to go with him, because you remember that situation he had with Dwight Howard and calling him out. That left pretty nasty. I'm hoping. I can't imagine that happening in Detroit. I don't think anyone's that much of a drama queen as
Brandon Jennings. Brandon Jennings is a bit of a drama queen.
Maybe. I'm leaning more towards his big man kind of thing. The guy he centers his team around, because he's going to do it. And I don't think Drummond will do that at all.
I want to see what he can do with Josh Smith, though, Stan Van Gundy, because you look at what he did with Hedo Turkoglu. He turned Hedo Turkoglu into an almost all-NBA caliber, all-around passing forward, knocking down important shots, and now we see what Turkoglu is doing now. He's just an absolute spud.
I feel like Josh Smith is just the key for the Pistons right now.
Yeah.
Who can work around him? What Stan Van Gundy can get out of him? Whether he performs, whether he doesn't. I think that's going to define the Pistons season.
Definitely. But before we move on, I want to touch on another person they brought in, which is Spencer Dinwiddie, who I only really like because he has a really awesome mustache.
And last name Dinwiddie. Come on.
Yeah. And moving on though.
Yep.
The bulk of the minutes are going to go to these 5 guys. You know, not much has changed from last season, except we got Stuckey out, your main man Jodie Meeks in, Brandon Jennings, Josh Smith, Greg Monroe, Andre Drummond. Who are you looking forward to seeing play in a Pistons uniform most of the season?
I want to say Jodie Meeks because I want to see him fail, but
rough, really rough.
For the 100th time, I'm going to circle back to Josh Smith. I loved him when he was at Atlanta. I thought he was a great player. I thought Dwight Howard would join in there and they'd make a great team and they'd both be home. But I think, I got to see him perform. I got to see him perform well, and I don't want to see him disappear into the league of no names. I want to see him perform well again. Yeah,
I think Smith's last season hopefully is just a flash in the pan, and that down year he had is not how his career is the trajectory of his career is going to follow from now on. I mean, you look at what he did last year. If there's any coach that can turn Smith's mindset around, it is Stan Van Gundy. He's going to scream at him until his ears fall off. I mean, last year he shot 27.9% on threes and just bombed them. 265 long bombs he shot last year, which for a guy that can't shoot is quite a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, had a career low, relatively low in rebounds. His points were down. So if there's someone that can turn it around this year and hopefully bring something to the Pistons, that X factor, it is Josh Smith. But for mine, the guy that is most important, key to everything this year, is the Goose, Andre Drummond, the big penguin. He's a stud.
Can I just ask you this early? Do you think this is because of Stan Van Gundy? Too many Steves. Stan Van Gundy's influence and wanting to have a dominant big man, or do you think this is just...
That is exactly why I've singled him out. I think Greg Monroe, there's some, his contract status is up in the air. He didn't sign a full-on extension. He's probably going to take the qualifying offer, which means he's an unrestricted free agent next season.
Yep.
So if they lose Greg Monroe, they're going to have to rely solely on Andre Drummond. And what I saw from Andre Drummond last year, double-double machine, decent rim protector. When he gets the ball around the basket, he finishes. And he is just a man mountain at a young age that could develop into something special.
Agree completely.
Yeah, and he's the Rising Stars MVP, which, when you're looking at people to put in the Hall of Fame, you just tick that one off. Yep. Rising Stars MVP, slot him into the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. It's all, back to Stan Van Gundy. He wants a big man. Andrew Drummond's it.
Well, he's got a big man that doesn't shoot free throws as well. 41% from the line. He should feel right at home.
He's used to it already, yeah.
Just like he's got Dwight there running around in the Pistons uniform.
Just chucking bricks up.
Yeah, it's not pretty to watch. You'd think he'd be able to turn it around. I mean, Dwight shoots 80% in practice though, so that's important.
Psychological.
But 13 points, 13 points, 13 rebounds a game in only his second year is really impressive. He was, second in the league in rebounds, double-double machine. I really singled out the Rising Stars. I made fun of it earlier, but I've singled that out because he just made those other guys look like little boys in that game. He just dominated them. So if he can grow into his body more, get maybe a couple more moves on the block, I think the most apt description I've heard of Andre Drummond in the post is he looks like a grizzly bear on a unicycle. Just doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, yeah, now that you say it, actually sounds pretty right.
He doesn't have much footwork or anything, but get it to it around the rim, he's going to finish, he'll clean up the offensive glass. I think, like you said, he is Dwight Howard 2.0 for Stan Van Gundy. He's going to be the center of this offense, so he can get it kicking out to shooters and draw a double team. Pistons will be better off for it. But we have to move on to the Believe the Hypothetical. Quick thanks to the guys at the Believe the Hype NBA podcast. Check out all the info on the screen and give the podcast a listen because it is great. We're loving these predictions, boys. And this one, what do you think, James? Even Stan Van Gundy doesn't care about this team.
I think that's a pretty brutal thing to say. Well, obviously he does. He's the new coach, but I don't know. I think they were swinging the axe on that one. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's a pretty harsh assessment, but I think it's probably maybe not too far off the mark in that the Pistons aren't going to. Oh no, I like this team. I do. I'm really interested to see them play next season, and I've got friends that are Pistons fans, so I don't want to put something between us there. But no, the Pistons are they're not a marquee team at the moment. They're a little way off of the championship teams of the mid 2000s, obviously,
yeah.
but. No, I think Stan cares. He's not only the coach, but he's the president of basketball operations.
Yeah.
So just for Pistons' sake, I really hope that he does care, because if he has that much power and he doesn't, then I think...
I'm pretty sure he cares. He signed on for 2 pretty major roles. I'm hoping he cares. You could blame him, obviously, if his mind wanders this season, because it's not going to be their season. It's probably not for a few seasons now, but... He definitely does care. I think he's excited about the project he's got ahead of him.
I think we're going to see him stripping paint off the walls in the locker room all season. So whether that means he cares or he doesn't, I'm not sure, but it's going to be fun to watch for sure.
Absolutely.
Got to wrap it up real quick though. 30 seconds on the clock. Buzzer beater prediction for you. What's going to happen in Detroit
this season?
We're
going to see not necessarily a revive Josh Smith, but he's definitely going to be better. The team's going to push a lot harder. With Jodie Meeks, I've paid him out the whole time, but I think he will improve the team as a whole. As he said with Stan Van Gundy, Andre Drummond's going to be the man. He's going to be under the rim. He's going to be not running the show, but I think as a whole, the team will grow. They're not going to grow enough to reach the playoffs, not after last season, not after Josh Smith's mental fragileness, I'm going to say. I don't know if that's a word. But, building for tomorrow, not today, that's the Pistons.
That's it. My prediction is a step forward. That's all I want to see out of the Pistons. I'm not predicting them to make the playoffs. I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but I expect them to be better than last year. I think they have to move forward. Jennings is going to improve under Van Gundy. Josh Smith is either going to improve under Van Gundy or he's not going to be playing for the Pistons by the trade deadline. So I think we're going to see Stan Van Gundy start to shape this team and a direction start to become more evident as to where they're heading. So my prediction is we're going to see a new look Pistons this year, and that hopefully Stan Van Gundy does care and they'll be making the playoffs soon.
Fingers crossed he cares.
Yeah, but that's all we've got time for today. Thanks for joining us at the Fiasco Sports NBA season previews. Thanks for flying in from LA, James.
Yeah, quick flight from the States. I had to be here for this.
Yeah, I know. We've got to wrap it up because I think you've got to catch a flight.
I do actually.
I saw you were hanging out with Adam Silver.
Exactly. He's a good friend of mine. I saw him at the game. Had a quick chat with him, but yeah, I'm going to go back to New York to hang out with him now, actually. So.
Yeah, so we got to wrap it up. Check out Believe the Hype, check out Sporties, all the info in the description. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one.
Cheers.